Please welcome to the stage, Alex Russian. Hello. Hello, Googlers. Good to see you. My name is Alex Russian. I'm a cloud engineering manager based here in the Seattle area, and I'm excited to be here today to help moderate today's Gear Up event brought to you by the Google School in partnership with Talks at Google. I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Simon Sinek. Simon may be best known for popularizing the concept of why described in his first TED Talk in 2009 and his interview on Millennials on in the Workplace, which broke the internet in 2016 and led to Simon being YouTube's 5th most searched term in the year 2017. Described as a visionary thinker with a rare intellect, Simon has devoted his professional life to help advance a vision of the world does not yet exist. A world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning, inspired and feeling safe wherever they are to end the day, fulfilled by the work that they do. Apologize. I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Simon is an unshakable optimist who believes in the bright future and our ability to build it together. So Google, please help me welcome Simon Sinek. Thank you for being here, Simon. Well, Simon, we are so glad to have you here. Thank you for spending time with us today. Oh, thanks for having me. Absolutely. To get us kicked off, I'd like to ask you about your first TED Talk in 2009. Start with why. That was 15 years ago. Start with why. How great leaders can inspire action. Can you walk us a little bit about what that was like? What was that journey getting to that TED Talk to deliver that message? So people ask me, like, how long did it take you to write the talk? Or how long did it take me to write the book? And my answer is every day of my life up until that day. My work is semi-autobiographical. And the journey of the why is entirely based in my own personal journey of completely losing my passion for my own work. I had a good job and made okay living. I had great clients, but I fell out of love with my own work. I kept it to myself mainly because I was embarrassed. And if you've ever been in a dark place, and if you don't tell anybody about it, turns out it gets darker. And that's exactly what happened to me way back when. And it wasn't until a very, very dear friend of mine came to me and said something's wrong, and I came clean and admitted what I was going through, and it was a huge weight off my shoulders. And so the journey I went on was to try and reclaim my passion, and that's when I discovered there was a confluence of events, but the short version is I discovered that I knew what I did it, but knew how I did it, but I didn't know why. And it's based on the biology of human decision making. So I had to know why I do what I do, and making money is not a getting promoted is not a why. Those are results. And so I went on this journey to find my why, but more important, I learned how to help other people find theirs. And I helped my friends find their whys, and they found renewed love for their own work. Some of them started their own businesses. Then they would invite me to share it with their friends, and I would help people find their why for $100 on the side. And then word just sort of kind of spread. Everything was organic until I got an invitation to do the TEDx talk up here in Pugido. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me. In your work, you emphasize the importance of knowing one's why, and you just mentioned that you'd gone through this yourself. How can individuals discover, or in most cases, rediscover their own purpose, especially during periods of change or uncertainty? Yeah. So one of the, we only have one. We are the products of our upbringing. You and I are, who we are is based on how we were raised, experiences we had as kids, our parents, our teachers, right? That's made us. Those things made us who we are. And there's no changing who you are. And the rest of our lives offer us opportunities to make decisions that are either consistent with who we truly are or not. We call it authenticity. We know what it feels like when we make those decisions. We have inspiration. We have passion. We have flow. We also know what it feels like to be out of balance. I've done this 100 times. Why am I not enjoying it anymore? And so one way there's many ways to do it. I've wrote a book called Find Your Why. We offer tools on our website, but I'll tell you one fun way to do it. It's called a friend's exercise, and anyone can do this. Find a friend you love and who loves you. Do not do this with a spouse. Do not do this with a sibling. Do not do this with a parent. Those relationships are too close. Do it with a best friend. Somebody you could call at 300 in the morning. They take your call, or they call you at 300 in the morning. You would definitely take their call and ask them the simple question, why are we friends? And then they're going to look at you like you're insane, because the part of the brain that controls feelings like love and loyalty doesn't control language. We struggle to put our feelings into language. It's an age-old human problem. And they're going to look at you and like you're insane. And then you actually stop asking the question why. And you say, come on, what specifically is it about me that I know you'd be there for me no matter what? And they're going to hem and hop. They're going to like, I don't know. I can count on you. You're always there for me. And you have to play devil's advocate. Good. That's the definition of a friend. What specifically is it about me that I know you'd be there for me no matter what? And you're going to go through a few rounds of this. They're going to hate you. Don't help them. Don't let anybody else help them. And eventually they'll give up. And eventually they'll start describing themselves. And this is what my friend said to me. My friend said, look, Simon, I don't know. All I know is I can sit in a room with you. I don't even have to talk to you and I feel inspired and I got goosebumps. In fact, I'm getting them right now because what they do is they articulate the value you have in their lives, which is your why. And it's the thing you give to the world. That's why you had the emotional response, because it tapped something deep inside you. And that's when you know you're there, which is you'll either get goosebumps or you'll well up with tears or whatever it is. You'll have an emotional response to something they describe in themselves. And if you do this with multiple friends, which I did, they'll say very similar, if not the exact same thing, because the thing you give to the world, your why, is the value that people take from you. Absolutely. You know, in and start with why. You often mention that you don't do business with people who can just give you something or serve a particular need. You do business who believe in what you believe in. And I feel like you're describing the same thing with friendships and interpersonal relationships. If you've got when they work, yeah. Or why they don't work sometimes, right? On paper, this should make sense, but it just doesn't feel right, as you often would say, right? Exactly right. Absolutely. I'm going to move on real quick. In what ways has your own why evolved over the last couple of years or been tested in period of times of change in your life or career?
Yeah.
So evolution, not a thing. It's a permanent fixture. I might tweak the words.
Yeah.
But the evolution is how I choose to bring it to life, but itself is a foundation. That's why people are reliable, right? Because when your why is fixed, it's you will always be who I know you will be. And if you make decisions inconsistent with your why, then people will say to like, I don't know who you are anymore. So the why hasn't evolved at all. How I've chosen to bring it to life, that's where the fun is. That's I can change what I do, but I can't change who I am. I can't change why I do what I do. So it's taken many twists and turns, in all the ways I've been through it, speaking or writing books, doing the online thing, when social media showed up, like none of those things scared me. None of those things, AI, none of that stuff feel threatening to me. It's like, I'm always like big mistakes people make when they approach a career, right? Which is people plan routes, but you don't have a sense of destination, right? Always sense of spontaneity, right? Their sense of destination is abstract, to be senior one day, to make millions of dollars one day, whatever to run something like, sure, they plan routes like work at this company this many a year, and it's the same. It's kind of the equivalent of like you say we're in the York house and they say vacation, they're like no, I know where we're going, no. They said, I told you vacation. Well, how are you going to get there? And they say, like, I'm going to take 95. I'm going to drive 150 miles a day. So they tell you the route. Yeah. But they don't know where they're going. And that's how a lot of us manage our careers. We plan routes and then we create back plans for whatever those short-term goals are. But the problem is, what if there's roadworks? What if there's some sort of closure? What do? You freak out usually, and now your metrics are destroyed and you're panicking, right? I'm the complete opposite. I have no idea what route I'm going to take, but I know that if I'm starting in New York and I want to get to California, that's it. That's all I know. Except my California is way abstract. Like well, it's not that abstract. It's just unrealizable. It's just idealistic. It's not abstract at all. Actually, like you said it, to create a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe wherever they are, and end the day fulfilled by the work that they do. That's my California, right? And the thing is, I'll start on 95 and I'll try and drive 150 mi a day. That sounds great. But then if there's roadworks, I'll be like, I'll go this way. And this is a slow road. So people think that I'm off, but they can't see my twisty road, but it's very, very focused. Yeah. And if somebody comes to me and says, I have a plane. I'm like, great, but which direction are you going, right? And I think that's one of the problems, which is we jump at jobs that offer us more money, but we don't know if it actually fulfills our values and helps us advance our cause. And so then we end up somewhere where we're highly paid and unhappy, and then it's not worth it. So I think having a clear sense of very, very distant and idealistic destination, and then being agnostic as to the route that we take, I think, at least for my experience, is a happier way to advance. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. You and I are speaking a little bit earlier today for Google. And those of us who work in the technology industry, the last couple of years have been tumultuous. There's been lightning fast in improvements in technology and changes, and I won't say the values, but the methods by which a lot of us are being told to achieve our goals and do our jobs. And I think you bring up a good point that for each of us individually, it shouldn't matter which route we're on, or if we have to divert our path, as long as we know where we're trying to get to as an end goal. And I feel like I know for myself, that's something that I've had to recalibrate. And I think a lot of us have been going through something very similar in terms of, are we still doing the work that we enjoy, and is it moving us closer to what we want to achieve, even if it's not the way we wanted to achieve it? I mean, you're touching on two things there. It's still stressful. What I'm talking about is not the absence of stress. It's just clarity as you go through that stress, and sometimes that stress is it feels a little more passionate, but I think what's very important, and I think often forgotten in these difficult and uncertain, because uncertainty is the worst part. Like, human beings can deal with bad news. We can deal with tragedy. We can deal with, something sudden and bad, but it's the slow drip of uncertainty that is actually much more insidious. Yes. But in any time of high stress or uncertainty, the most important thing we have to do is double down on relationships, double down on friendships. And this is the thing we forget. Which as human beings, we're not designed to survive in nature by ourselves. We're not very strong, and we're not very smart by ourselves. But in groups, we're remarkable. There's nothing that has ever achieved of any kind of significance in this world by one person. It was always teams of people every single time. And so I think that to know how to develop the skill set of friendship is perhaps the single best thing we can do. I'll give you a couple of examples. So if you think about it, we have an entire industry to help us be better leaders. We have an entire industry to help us be better parents, an entire industry to teach us how to eat better, how to exercise better, how to sleep better. And yet there's precious little on how to be a good friend, right? And if you look at the rising rates of anxiety and depression, and sometimes suicide, even the obsession with longevity, friendship fixes all those things. Friendship is the ultimate biohack. Right? And if you ask most people, are you a good friend? Most people say yes. But if you peel the onion just a little bit, would you cancel on a friend for a meeting? Would you cancel a meeting for a friend? Oh, but my friends would understand. Turns out we're actually pretty crap friends. And if you look at people's relationships, like think about the marriages or personal into romantic relationships that you look to be like, that's what I want. That's the kind of relationship I want. If you ask all those people, what's your secret? They all say the same thing, which is it's hard work and we do the work. Now, how many people would describe their close friendships as hard work, but we do the work? We take it for granted. They happen by default. Like, making friends is the easy part. Staying friends is hard. And sometimes we stay in friendship simply because time is the bond, right? I've been friends for 15 years. Yeah, but I get nothing from this. How can you end a friendship after 15 years? A friend of mine did this recently where a friendship was faltering with someone. You know what she did? Genius. She demanded that she and her friend get therapy together. Wow. Just like a relationship. Yeah. And I thought that was magical. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And very few of us actually have the skills of how to be a friend. We're not very good at listening. When somebody's going through a difficult time, we want to fix them. We want to offer them advice. We're not very good at just sitting in mud with them and going, yeah, this sucks. And waiting for them to say, Glenn, I think I'm ready to get out now, and making them feel not alone. And that's the core of friendship. And if we develop the skill set of being a friend to someone, it's actually helping them be a friend to us as well. A friend of mine was going through something hard, which I didn't know about. I went to her house for dinner and we just catching up. I'm like, what have you been up to? And she said, well, last week it was really rough. And I was like, well, why didn't you call me? Like, I'm one of your best friends. Like, why didn't you call me? She says, I did. I'm like, you didn't? She goes, I texted you multiple times. I'm like, no, you didn't. And I like pull up my phone to prove to her that she did. And the texts say, what up? What are you doing? Want to come over? I'm like, you mean these texts? How am I to be able to distinguish those texts from as a cry to help as opposed to every other text you've ever sent me? And that's, she had read an article just previously that when somebody is struggling, all they need is 8 minutes of attention from someone. Wow. To feel not alone doesn't mean you're going to, And so we came up with a code, which is, the text is now, do you have 8 minutes? Which means I really need you. Anyone can leave a meeting for 8 minutes. Go just let somebody know that they're not alone. And I think this is when you're going through periods of stress and say, I don't know, I don't know how to deal with somebody who had a decision to make, and somebody who knows how to strike me and alone. Needy. I'm telling you, that's 90% of it. Yeah, that's amazing. You did mention earlier that it's easy to make friends. So I'm going to have to tell you about the Seattle freeze after this event. I think friends happen. At least that's how we treat it. Yeah, absolutely. Let me pivot a little bit. Everybody has a friend, even an imaginary one. Let's talk a little bit about the infinite game mindset. What is this perspective between finite and infinite games, and how does that change the way you should move through the world and how you make decisions? So this has profoundly changed my view of the world. It profoundly changed my whole approach to the world. In the mid-1980s, a philosopher and theologian by the name of James Carse articulated these two types of games, finite games and an infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and agreed upon objective. Football, baseball, a new business pitch, right? If there is a winner necessarily, there has to be a loser or losers. But more important, there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. Always, then you have infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players, which means you don't necessarily know who all the players are, and new players can join at any time. Yeah. The rules are changeable, which means every player can play however they want. And the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. We are players in infinite games every day of our lives, whether we know it or not. No one will ever win career. No one will ever be declared the winner of education or health or marriage. Nobody wins marriage, right? If you're trying to be number one in your marriage, it's not going to work. There's no such thing as the winner of business, right? Right? But if you listen to the language of so many leaders, it becomes very clear that they actually don't know the game they're playing in. They talk about being number one, being the best, or beating their competition based on what? Based on what agreed upon metrics, objectives, and time frames. You can choose those whatever you want. And when you play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, when you play to win in a game that has no finish line, there are very predictable outcomes. Decline of trust, decline of cooperation, decline of innovation. I'll give you a real life experience that I had that really captures it. So I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft, and by sheer coincidence, a few months later, I spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the Microsoft summit, every executive spent like 80% of the executives spent about 80% of their PowerPoints talking about how they were going to beat Apple. At the Apple summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how they're going to help teachers teach and how they're going to help students learn. One was obsessed with their cause. One was obsessed with beating their competition. Guess who was having morale problems? At the end of my Microsoft talk, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zoom when it was a thing. The Zoom was Microsoft's response to the iPod, and Ballmer had been very public that he was going to make the best iPod and beat Apple and blah, blah, blah. And I got to tell you, this little piece of technology was pretty good. At the end of my Apple talk, I shared a taxi with a senior Apple executive, and I couldn't help myself. It's a personality flow. I had to stir the pot. And so I turned to him. I go, Microsoft gave me their new Zoom. It is so much better than my iPod Touch. And he looks at me, goes, I have no doubt. And the conversation was over. That was it. Because when you're playing with an infinite mindset, you're not actually competing against anybody else. You're competing against yourself. That's the only true competition. And where Microsoft was trying to beat Apple, Apple was simply trying to not do itself. And you recognize when you play with an infinite mindset that sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're fine. That's just how the game goes. And it's worth noting that 2 years later, A year later, Apple introduced the iPod, the iPhone that rendered the Zoom and the iPod obsolete. And that's what happens when you play with an infinite mindset. You outer yourself and you destroy and change marketplaces. And I think too many organizations these days, for various reasons, which we can go into if you want, but too many organizations and too many leaders are playing with a finite mindset and infinite game. Like when Circuit City went bankrupt, Best Buy didn't win anything. That's a really good point. Absolutely. Now you've written about the importance of optimism. What's the difference between blind and informed optimism, and why is the latter essential for effective leadership? Well, I don't think any optimism is blind. I think there's blind positivity for sure. I mean, not to make it a semantic debate. Yes, there's a blind positiveness and there's an aware positiveness. But the way I like to define it is a leader or someone who's constantly positive. That is actually very unhealthy because for one, it's just not true. In very dark times, when our leader comes and goes, everything's great, guys, look at all the good things that are happening. It's like, shut up, right? And when you see somebody in very hard times who's always positive, it actually makes you feel worse about yourself because you're thinking, God, if they're always positive, it doesn't mean something wrong with me. So it's actually not helpful, and it does not breed, especially. I understand why leaders do it. It just doesn't work. Optimism is the opposite. Optimism is not naive, nor is it blind. It is the undying belief that the future is bright, but we can sit in hell and darkness and struggle. Now, optimism allows for that. Optimism allows you to say, look, these are the darkest times we've ever been in, and I don't even know how long it's going to last, and I don't even know 100% how to get through it. But what I do know is that if we work together and take care of each other, we 100% will get through this, and we will come out stronger than we went in. That's optimism. And that's what good leaders are able to do. They're able to help us work together in darkness, but not ignore the fact that it's dark. Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite phrases is it might get worse before it gets better, but the getting better is the important part, right? So I agree with you. It usually gets worse before it gets better. Yeah, time after time. All right, let's talk about change a little bit. Change is often accompanied by fear and resistance. How can we shift our mindset to view change as an opportunity for growth and innovation? And what are some practical strategies we can use to cultivate a more optimistic outlook during times of change? All right, that's a big one. Okay, so I love all these change management. I love all these change management PowerPoints that are always given. People fear change. No, they don't. People fear sudden change. Gradual change is not threatening. Evolution offends no one, and sometimes the result of that evolutionary change can be profound and there's no going back. People don't fear change. People don't want whatever is working for them to be disrupted, right? So it's not that I fear the change. It's that this is working well for me. I don't want this to change. I look at that with uncertainty going, is it going to take away this? Then I don't want it. And usually when people are resistant to change, it's not the change they're resistant to. It's fear that someone younger will take over my job. Someone less expensive will replace me. It's fear that whatever has been working for me that got me promoted time and time again will no longer work. It's almost 100% fear-based. And so if you can just recognize that instead of giving people PowerPoints with rational explanations why a change is good and you can look forward to this change, it doesn't what you're attempting to do is address emotions with facts. You can never bring facts to emotional gunfight. You have to meet people where they are. Emotion meets emotion. Facts meet facts. So the first thing to do is sit down and understand and listen to people. Tell me what you tell me what's going on. Tell me what you tell me what you fear. Do you fear anything? And they'll always project it's this that's broken. It's that doesn't work. But at the end of the day, and we have a rule at our company, which is if the response is above a 5, it's about something else. Like when you leave your fridge open and your partner screams at you like, why do you always leave the fridge open? It's like, it's not about the fridge, right? And so usually when people are that resistant, it's usually not about whatever change you're proposing. And so a good leader will spend the time to go and make that person feel heard. That's the most important part. It doesn't mean then they're going to get what they want, but people want to feel heard, right? Like something like 70% of medical malpractice suits are because the doctor refused to apologize, right? People want to be seen and people want to be heard. And if they feel validated and they feel like their points of view are considered, people don't always expect to get what they want. They just want to know that they've been seen and that they matter. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mentioned briefly earlier, I feel like we're going through a period of a lot of change now. And it is the suddenness of it usually that catches us so off guard. In the technology industry, sudden changes happen all the time. You mentioned earlier about the iPad or the iPhone. I'm sorry, rendering the iPod completely extinct, and how that was fine for Apple. They were able to handle that because it aligned with their, by the way, I think they should bring them back and give them to children so that they can, cuz my nephew's like, I'm listening to music on my iPhone. I'm like, are you though? Anyway, but I digress. Yeah, that's totally fine. Bring back MP3 players. All right, let's talk about the Clifton Strengths Top 5 assessment, which I know that you have a partnership with. So as part of Gear Up, the Google School is also making the Clifton Strengths Top 5 assessment available to every Googler around the world. So take note of that. Go to the Go link. Why do you think it's important to lead with our strengths too, to find them, recognize them, and then lead with them? And what have you learned by doing this for yourself? So yeah, I like the Strength Finder, and we did do it as a whole company. Everybody did it. And it does a lot of things, right? The frustration you have with somebody who they annoy you at work. And I don't mean their personality. I mean, like, there's some things driving you nuts. It helps understand that they're actually in a position where they're struggling. They're not leaning into their natural strengths. So you're expecting everybody to be their strengths to be your strengths, right? So it just helps you see people as people in it, and you're like, oh, that's why. And it becomes much easier to help people like sit in their strengths. It also, for people who are insecure or defensive, we all are at some point about what we're good and bad at. You look at it, be like, well, that's why I suck at that. And it sort of takes a weight off your own shoulders, that I can't be good at everything. It also helps you understand teaming. And it also helps you sort of just recognize and relate to each other. Like futuristic is, I think one of my big ones, iterative strategic. Those are sort of, I think, some of my big ones. And like, when you get to know me and you recognize that basically I live with my head in the clouds, that's why, my execution is like this big. I need other people around me to help me execute my ideas. And if you, and what I think Strength Finders does is that it allows for something that I like to call confident ignorance, right? Which is, we're always told in sort of leadership theory that you have to be vulnerable. You have to say what say you don't know something if you don't know something, and admit your shortcomings. And that's scary to a lot of people because nobody wants to be weak, but there's confident influence, right? So, for example, if somebody's like, I need you to do this, you're like, I don't know how to do that. I'm definitely going to need help. Don't do that. Like, that will freak people out, right? But if you say, oh, I suck at this, I have no idea how to do that, I'm definitely going to need help to do that, need help to execute that. If you just own it, that's the confident ignorance. Just be super confident in what you don't know. Yeah. Be super confident in what your weaknesses are. It actually is quite inspiring. It actually gives people a clues as to where you need help, which means they'll help you, but also it helps them. It creates space so that they'll be honest back to you. So if you're in a leadership position, especially, and you're confident in the things you don't know, guess what the team will do. They'll be confident in the things they don't know, and then you can help them. But if you're lying and hagging and faking every day, pretending you know everything and you know all the answers, guess what your team's going to do? Pretend they know all the answers all the time, because we generally follow our leaders. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you touched on something that reminded me of a previous topic as well in terms of competition versus worthy rivals, right? And knowing your own strengths, the strengths of the people that you're not competing with, but operating within the same game within, and how you might be able to sharpen steel against steel. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, and viewing people as rivals you can learn and grow from versus people that you must defeat? Sure. So in a finite game, you have competitors. You play to beat someone, right? They are your competition. In an infinite game, there is no competition because there's no winning and losing, right? And yet the fact that we call other companies in our space or even our colleagues competitors is actually incorrect, right? They are other players and they are rivals, and some of those rivals are worthy of comparison. In other words, they're really good at what they do. In fact, sometimes they're better at some things than we are, And so I believe in the concept of worthy rivalry, which is find another player who is as good or better than you in some things, that their strengths reveal to you your weaknesses, and use them as a foil. Be grateful for them. Now go work on those weaknesses, right? So where I have no problem with Microsoft making a great MP3 player, but start trying to beat Apple, just use Apple as a foil and be like, oh my God, look how good their product is. Guys, we need to do better, right? And we can do it at work too. You know, we pick people that we compete against at work, which think about that. Like when you hear somebody got a promotion and you get mad, right? Like you got mad at somebody else's success. Well, they don't deserve it. Maybe not. I mean, nobody said this was always fair, right? Think about all the promotions you got. 'Cause I deserved every single one over everybody else. Yeah, no. But having worthy rivals at work is totally fine to be like, oh my God, that person, they're so good at public speaking. They're such a great engineer. They're so good at like the way they lead and other people just like follow them, that if they quit, I knew that like 10 people are going to leave with them. Like I want to be like that. Instead of hating them and trying to bring them down, use them to learn from them, watch them, study them, use them as your worthy rival, your peer pacer. And maybe you'll outgrow them and they won't be your worthy rival anymore. That's fine too. But I think worthy rivalry is a much healthier way of viewing other players.